Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to more action from the BRSCC Winter Esports Series, the first event of 2024 in this second ever season. We're back on iRacing, we're back in the MX-5 Global Cup cars, and we're visiting one of the best circuits in the UK, Donington Park in Leicestershire on the national circuit, with some 28 of the best and brightest from across the BRSCC esports scene and BRSCC racing paddocks ready to do battle in their first event of the new season. Welcome everybody to tonight's event, round 7, 8 and 9 of this 2023-24 season. Scott Wood was here on commentary, Lee Thompson on production with cameras for you tonight, and we are set for what should be quite an exciting few races. Of course, we've had the opening couple of rounds at Silverstone on the international circuit, on the Grand Prix circuit, and on Brands Hatch on the Grand Prix circuit. Now, of course, we come to Donington. Of course, it's been around, existed as a circuit since the 1930s. And it was out of commission for a while. It came back to life around about the mid-80s, and since then it has been coming ever since one of the best loved circuits in the country, and certainly there's not really a bad race that I've ever seen at Donington Park when it comes to action all the way. Currently into qualifying at the moment. Before we get to that, let's just give you a recap of where we are in terms of the standings after two meetings at Silverstone and Donington Park. So as we come into Donington for our third round, it's William Chadwick who leads the way by just 3 points from Ted Bradbury in second place. Then the defending eSports Series winner, Mikey Doble, is third. And if you're wondering, yes, that Mikey Doble is in BTCC style Mikey Doble. Tom Griffith is fourth, ahead of Richard Jepp, then Matt Kendall, Will Redford, Will Blackwell Chambers, Isaac Doble and Joe Doble. So all three of the Doble siblings are in the top 10 in this point standings, but it's still very, very congested. You look at the top 10, it's only covered by about 40 points, and that means that if anyone has a bad race, you can see them slipping down the order. There are some drop scores. You drop your 3 worst scores in the season as we continue to scroll through the point scorers to this point. So ultimately there are a couple of the drivers who either had some rough results or aren't even dropping any scores at all yet because they missed 1 or 2 of the rounds, and therefore if you miss any rounds, they automatically become your drop scores or no scores in that sense. The rest of the orders we sweep through, we've had fantastic response for the BRSCC Winter Esports Series. Over 40 drivers registered, 42 in total have raced, 28 of them or so are here tonight, and we are in the middle of qualifying for the first of 2 races, roughly round about looking at sort of 6.5 minutes to go in qualifying. Currently it is the points leader William Chadwick who has the fastest time, but it's looking very, very tight at the top of the point of the qualifying order, as you can see at the top, because Tom Griffiths is just behind in second place, but there's only half a tenth separating second back to fifth. We've got Tom Griffiths, Mikey Doble, Matt Kendall and John Higgins Jr. So watch out for them. That was Will Redford, who Doesn't sometimes always keep it completely out of trouble. I think, as was noted back at Silverstone when he made that huge dive down the inside of literally everybody into Vale, just about got it stopped, and then was involved in a bit of a fracas a couple of corners later that included making collisions. I think it was with both Matt Kendall and Mikey Doble. So, well, incredibly quick driver. He was runner-up in last year's eSports Series, but I think sometimes even he will admit once or twice he gets a little bit untidy, which I think he's going to have to try and just calm down just a little bit in order to get himself some strong results. And even he will admit that he's quick, but sometimes gets a little bit overexcited, which hopefully he won't do too much tonight. We've got two of the teammates. This is the Bromley Racing without the studios cars. This is James Dennison and Pete Smith. Now, usually they share an MX-5 in real life in the BRSCC Supersport Endurance Cup, and also James Dennison and Pete Smith have also raced that car as well in the Mazda MX-5 Championships for real. So we can see them now as teammates in a pair of these purple machines. They continue on qualifying. 5 minutes left to go. In terms of drivers who are not as high up as I would expect them to be in terms of this qualifying session, one of which is the man second in the standings. That's Ted Bradbury, only 13th fastest, 6/10 off. But if you look at how competitive it really is, as we focus on Ted Bradbury, car number 53, you can see that the top 19 drivers are covered by just under a second. That's just how close and competitive it's becoming. And that seems to be a theme when it comes to these series. We had it in Season 1, it's continuing in Season 2, where you do get some drivers that are doing it for the first time, then start to get quicker and quicker with more practice. And as the season goes on, you might get quite a few big gaps as the season starts. But then as it goes on and drivers get more experience, more laps under their belt, they get used to the fixed setup that these cars all have to run, then it starts to become closer, more competitive, more action-packed, and the lead group becomes bigger and bigger as the season goes on. So watch for that, especially tonight. I'm sure there'll be some people who have been practicing over the winter and over the festive period to get themselves ready for resuming the eSports Series tonight. Looking at a couple of the drivers on screen here, I think we're just ahead of Luke Herbert here, who's a former three-time Mazda MX-5 Super Cup champion. That is Mike Close, who's been a regular MX-5 racer before, and now he is a team boss for Close Racing. They're only running purely MX-5. I think he's also possibly looking at running, maybe, don't quote me on this yet, possibly looking at Audi TTs, but I don't know how far he's getting on with that. As qualifying continues on, we go on board with Luke Herbert, down the Starkey Straight and up towards the Quality S's. Heads out through the right and through the left and back onto the pit straight once again. It is one of those circuits where, even though it's not completely the original circuit, when you look back at the original circuit back in 1931, you look at parts of the circuit like Hollywood, the old Hairpin, McLean's, Coppice, even towards Redgate, you look at the shape of the circuit when it first started back in 1931, all the way through to how it is now. There are a lot of similarities, and it is one of those circuits where it really does, as you can see here, through the Craner curves and through Hollywood and the old Hairpin, it really is one of those fantastic natural wonders. It's not a circuit that's been touched too much by alterations and changes. It was, of course, brought back to life, I correct myself, it was in 1977 it came back together after its that was a layoff of around about, what, almost 40 years, when it held its last race back in 1939 in its original first few layouts, before it then became almost the initial version of the circuit that we know nowadays. But this circuit, fast, it's flowing, it's sweeping, it's good to get a decent rhythm on it. You can really just flow from corner to corner, and particularly in cars like these, when you can push them hard, but you need to be smooth and precise at the same time to really get the most out of them. This is a circuit that will really suit these cars and this kind of racing. And typically in real life, we've seen the Mazda MX-5s do a fantastic job, whether it's the Clubman Championship, the MX-5 Championship, or the MX-5 Super Cup. Their races at Donington Park were particularly action-packed last year. I'm certain when they head there next year, it will be more. This year, it will be more of the same. Less than 2 minutes in qualifying now. Joe Doble getting the push from his brother and teammate Mikey Doble. Of course, his car adorning the Power Max Racing livery that he runs on his Vauxhall Astra British touring car in real life. And of course, being the defending eSports Series winner, he runs the #1 on that car too. So up to the timing line comes Mikey Doble. Can he improve from third quickest? He's got about 2 1/4 tenths to find. Across the line he goes, and he cannot improve on that time. So his last lap was, if I can find it on the screen, his last lap was a 1:16.903. So incredibly consistent, only literally a few thousandths of a second off his best qualifying time so far in the session, which is a 1:16.891, but still has 2 tenths or so to find. But there's Steve Roberts. I'm sure that if no one wants to see that car in the mirrors too much, because of course he is adorning a police-style livery. We also switched to Richard Jett here, of course, who's a 2-time Student Motorsport Challenge champion for the Team Northbrook squad in the Nankang Tyre City Car Cup. And as he finishes off his qualifying session, he looks as though he'll be starting and in 20th place, but again, he is the highest, but he's the last car to be within a second of the pole position times. He's got some work to do, certainly, given that he currently sits fifth in the series standings on 281 points, just one behind Tom Griffiths and a further 7 behind Mikey Doble on 288. Remember, Chadwick and Bradbury, who have won races, of course, so far, have taken the lion's share of the victories, only 3 points apart. There is William Chadwick in the white and green machine. For Green Genie Racing, he certainly has been one of the discoveries of the eSports series. So he'll be looking to try and maintain his advantage from the pole position as we get towards the final few seconds of the session. And the likes of Mikey Doble, Matt Kendall, John Higgins Jr., Will Blackwood Chambers, who, while we were talking there, did pop up to 7th fastest, only 3.5 tenths off the pole position time and a fraction faster than Ewan Charman, one of our younger drivers in the field. It will certainly mean that William Chadwick will hope to try and maintain that advantage from pole, but whether he can or not is a big ask altogether. The qualifying is now complete. We're getting set to grid up for race 1 of the evening, round 7 of the 2023-24 BRSCC Winter Esports Series. And the grid looks like this. William Chadwick, the current points leader, on pole position alongside the man 4th in points, Tom Griffiths, on the front row of the grid. Then it's defending series winner Mikey Doble ahead of Matt Kendall on the 2nd row. Then it's John Higgins Jr. and Will Redford take up row 3. Will Blackwood Chambers and Ewan Charman complete the 4th row ahead of Chris Etheridge in the #Blessed car. And James Dennison in the first of the Bromley Racing Machines rounds off the top 10. Then it's the next of the Doble siblings, Joe Doble in 11th alongside Andrew Tibbs in 12th position. Row 7 sees Ted Bradbury 2nd in the points, but back on row 7 with some work to do from 13th alongside Lee Brisson. Then Tom Selden and Harvey Jones come next from Finley Lyons, who of course is the son of TCR UK promoter Stuart Lyons. And Isaac Doble, the third of the Dobles in the family, he starts 18th. Then it's Steve Roberts and Ari Barker, Richard Jett down in 21st after he dropped down late on. Then Pete Smith, Luke Herbert and Richard Wooden on the 12th row of the grid. Still we scroll through with the likes of Richard Harwood, Keith Dalton, Mike Close, Will Hopkins, Richard Frey and Tom Monhemius rounds off the top 30 drivers that we have on the grid, being set to run here at Donington Park. The grid's starting to populate. You will see William Chadwick's white and green car pop into view when he's ready to grid up, which is white and green on the left-hand side. It's the blue car with the yellow striping on the bonnet. That is Tom Griffiths. The Power Max livery car, of course, is Mikey Doble. Watch for the white car of Matt Kendall in there too, which is the second car on the right on the grid. 30 MX-5 Global Cup cars all set to go, as we see William Chadwick leaving it incredibly late until he decides to grid up. He's using the full 90 seconds he gets allocated, as every driver does, to click the button to grid up. And once he's on there, we'll be seeing set for our first of 3 races. Watch for the lights at the top of the screen, and when they do go out, our 7th round of the 2023-24 BRSCC Winter Esports Series is going to be all set to get underway then. So it is Chadwick and Griffiths on the front row of the grid. We are all ready to go. The lights are going to come on any second. The reds will rise. Who wins the whole shot down towards Redgate corner for the first time? 5 red lights at the top of the screen. Lights out, and we are esports racing at Donington Park. And one car didn't move. That might well be John Higgins Jr., who got a tough start. There's a couple of cars off already in the background. What I think is Chris Etheridge in the #Blessed car. Meanwhile, down towards Redgate for the first time, and Chadwick will sweep across and take the lead from pole position out of Redgate corner. Side by side for second as Mikey Doble pulls level with Tom Griffiths. And now as they come out of Hollywood, cascading down through the Craner curves for the first time, we shall see who can come out on top in his first few corners. Apart from a little skirmish on the pit straight, everyone appears to be minding the P's and Q's so far. I spoke too soon. That was Joe Doble after a fast-starting Tom Selden. It has been a few weeks since we last raced at Brands Hatch. I think a couple of drivers just needed to shake off some cobwebs, I think, in terms of racecraft. And Mikey Doble wasting no time as well. He's made a great exit out of the old hairpin, and he now leads midway through lap 1 in round 7. Out of McLean's and up towards Coppice for the first time. And Chadwick, after a strong start, is starting to fall back here and coming under pressure from Matt Kendall, who is in 4th position. So he's down to 3rd at the moment. Also has dropped back behind Tom Griffiths. We see a few more cars battling. That's Pete Smith scrapping with Finley Lyons, and it looks as though also is Joe Doble in the mix there too. One trying to spread out a little bit and find their racing line, but we've got our initial leading group here of looks like 8 cars in the mix. That's going to be Doble, Griffiths, Chadwick, Kendall, Blackwell Chambers, Redford, Dennison and John Higgins Jr. That's your octuplet as they head down the pit straight towards Redgate for the second time. And it is the most amount of places made up on the opening lap as we have a look as they come across the line. It appears to be Richard Jett so far. That's now been trumped by Richard Frey, who started back in 29th on the grid. He's now up 12 spots to 17th, so watch for him coming through from the back. This is the second group, headed by Ted Bradbury. He's getting the push now from, looks like, Harvey Jones and Richard Jepp, who's recovering after he had a slightly slower start, and he's been picking his way through. They're almost door to door between the two of them, down towards the old hairpin. Here comes Finley, lines up the inside from nowhere. Thank you very much, and he exits stage right, and I think he tries to take the racing line just across the nose of Jepp's car, and it didn't quite work out for Finley. And just whilst it's been happening, Pete Smith and Richard Jepp have got together, so it's been a mix of fortunes for Richard Jepp. He made up 10 or 11 spots and then gets caught up in essentially 2 incidents in the space of 2 corners. Misfortune for Richard, but he'll be trying to reclaim himself and try and get himself back into a better position for race number 2. Now, the leading 8 cars are all together in this one-pack NASCAR style, down the back straight towards the chicane here at Roberts after the Starkey straight, as Chadwick thumps the curb and looks for second place, and he might have a slowdown penalty here because he's moved to the inside line, so it was just cutting the course a little too much, and he gets a slowdown penalty. So William Chadwick then dropping back to at least 8th position. He really is dropping back down, but he's back on the power now. Got to be careful because these two are starting to break away from that second group. It's Bradbury and Harvey Jones to round off the top 10 so far, and Bradbury not on the same kind of pace that he was back at Silverstone and Brands Hatch. He's got some work to do tonight already to try and pick his way through. If he can try and latch on to the back of Chadwick, of course, who is the closest man to him in the series, only 3 points apart between these two, you might well find a bit more pace. Further back in the pack, we're looking here at Pete Smith battling with Joe Doble. This is over 19th position. It's no less fierce than the battle of the lead, and down towards the old hairpin they come. Looks as though Doble's got the line and the position. Pete Smith will tuck in and see if he can try and latch on. They're both starting to chase after both Richard Frey and Richard Harwood. Come back up the hill towards the Schwantz curve and then into McLean's. It's not so jostling for position here, and that was Doble and Smith getting together, and one is off into the inside of the grass at the exit of McLean's, the other one just about holding onto the gravel as they get back going again. I thought they were on a collision course once again to make another tangle after they just rejoined. Meanwhile, the leaders back through Robert chicane and onto that pit straight once again, down the Wheatcroft straight. Doble then has this race currently under control, but he's feeling the pressure from Griffiths, who might be lining him up for a pass here. He's looking certainly quite racy in these early laps. The pole sitter, of course, William Chadwick, after he got that slowdown penalty last lap, is just trying to close back in. He's not too far off the tail of that group. He's dropped Bradbury and Jones, who are still fighting over 9th and 10th position. And Ewan Chalmers not too far away from them. You can see he's 11th, only about 7/10ths away from that second group, so maybe he can start to break away from the likes of Barker. Isaac Doble's tumbling down the timing screen, which suggests that he's had a drama. I think somewhere must be up around the first corner at Redgate. There's Larry Barker in the second of the Team Northbrook racing cars, which he runs in alongside Richard Jepp. Of course, he's outside the top 25 after the couple of incidents he had a couple of laps ago. It's currently under threat from Luke Herbert. And just a couple of places back, this is Steve Roberts scrapping with Chris Etheridge, who is fairly experienced not in just the C1 Racing Club, of which his car adorns the #Blessed livery, but this is a different Etheridge. He also races, I think, with Andy Etheridge in a BMW 3 in the Supersport Endurance Cup. So certainly well versed in endurance racing, long distance action, but in terms of sprints, he might have to possibly keep on experimenting and getting a little bit quicker. On board with James Dennison now, looking at the tail of Will Blackwell Chambers. This is the leading 5 cars ahead as Dennison looks for 6th, but he might be 7th now because John Higgins Jr. is having a little look up the inside, and there he is. We couldn't quite see him, but they were side by side on the exit. As they come down the hill, cascading through Hollywood, William Chadwick has now stopped to catch them back up again. This means now that Chadwick's got a task here in this sort of next 2/3 of the race, as we've gone past the first 5.5 minutes or so. His task now is to try and pick his way through, and as we know, catching is one thing, but passing is definitely another. Chadwick's not hesitating to make a move. Neither is Tom Griffiths, though. He's looking to the outside in towards McLean's. It's 2 by 2 into McLean's corner as Will Redford's up the inside of Matt Kendall. Blackwell Chambers thinks, I want a piece of this too. He's looking to the inside to try and follow Redford through past Kendall. Kendall has the door open. He's got no choice because Redford's trying to get through. Meanwhile, Doble just leans on Griffiths a little bit, and now it's 2 by 2 again down the back straight. They are practically touching wing mirrors on the approach down the Starkey straight towards the Roberts chicane. Who breathes first? Who breaks latest? Into the right-hander. Doble has track position, thumps over the curb onto 2 wheels, and he holds on to the place. And the momentum loss of Griffiths now puts him under threat from both Redford and Kendall. down the weak cross straight. He's now side by side for second place. And Redford has the overlap. Can he be last on the brakes? In towards the right-hander. Griffiths doesn't want to give it up. He fights back on the inside line. They're still side by side on the exit. They just rubbed panels a little bit, but this lead group is all together again. Doble, if he can start to pull away here, might get a chance to start to escape up the road in his next few corners if this battle of a second continues to trip over each other. And the hill in towards Redgate once again, and to the old hairpin. They've gone through Redgate already a few corners back. They're still side by side for second place. No change through Starkeys and up through Schwanzkerb. Griffiths doesn't want to give it up. He puts two wheels on the grass as Redford holds the racing line and moves across. So Redford up to second place now. Chadwick in the background in the back of that group, the white and green machine. He's now into almost seventh place. To past Dennison. Dennison fights back. We're looking at Will Blackwell Chambers just ahead of them, who's battling away with John Higgins Jr. This is very akin to NASCAR racing, never mind MX-5 racing. If you've watched the Global MX-5 Cup in the US as well, they are always this close in terms of battles. That's why the MX-5 is not only the best car for rookies, but it's certainly a car which provides fantastic racing on the iRacing service, whether you're a rookie or an experienced racer with plenty of high iRacing. Doesn't matter, you can put on some excellent racing. When you've got a group of very talented and competent drivers like we have here at the front, it certainly makes for some excellent action. Now let's look at these three for a little bit, because we've got to be careful. The top eight have got to be careful, as now we have Ed Bradbury, Harvey Jones and Ewan Charman. They're three of our youngest drivers on the series. As we see them coming down the hill. Now Chadwick is a few seconds ahead of James Dennis. Chadwick and Dennison are a few seconds ahead of Ted Bradbury. We've got Jones and Charman, and then further back by another 4 seconds is a scrap for 12th between Luke Herbert and Harry Barker, which we're seeing just some of the timings there on the bottom right of the screen. Those are the cars that are mainly fighting over these positions. And Bradbury is almost trying to lead the charge here to catch up to the top eight. If he can really put himself into the mix. But what he needs those top eight to carry on scrapping and fighting and mixing with each other to allow him to not only to sail onto the back of that train, but to also start to bring both Harvey Jones and Ewan Charman with him. And if he can do that, it will be quite an intriguing 11-car scrap if it stays that way for the remaining 6 minutes of this first race. Down the Starkey straight and up towards the Robert chicane once again. As look at all the curb they use. Got to be careful with some of those slowdown penalties, because Chadwick's already had one which made him pull to the inside line early on. But as they thump over the curb, they're nearly 4 abreast down the pit straight, down towards Redgate corner. Something's got to give. It's Kendall, Chadwick, John Higgins Jr. and Will Blackwell Chambers. Somebody's got to be last of the late breakers. They all aim for the apex. Who gets it first? Well, on the inside it was Matt Kendall, but on the outside line holding the momentum is John Higgins Jr. and he has got the move stuck. So the Hills Motorsport man, he's up into 4th position. He's 1 spot away from a penalty. From a podium, not a penalty. If he carries on like this and cuts to the track too many times, he'll get a penalty. But he's 1 step away from a podium, if I can get my words right. He will be on course for that if he can hold on to it. And the big pressure now from Matt Kendall, who is keeping in that lead group. Of course, Matt Kendall is a regular in the BMW Compact Cup, and I'm certain if he puts some good form in this year, he'll be one of those drivers towards the front of the field. On board with Matt now, staring at the back of the Hills Motorsport car in the same colours as last year's Pro Class MX-5 Super Cup champion and John Higgins Jr.'s team boss, effectively, Aidan Hills. We come onto the Starkey straight again. Now, these cars punch quite a bit of a hole in the air. They've got quite an aerodynamic little front end, but certainly in the toe, they'll start to close in more and more. Not that close to make a dive up the inside, but he'll try and follow him through and get a nice, tighter, cleaner line onto the pit straight, which may well help him get momentum to think about a pass in towards Redgate. He's closing in steadily. Higgins puts his car in the middle of the road. Which way is he going to go? Inside or outside? He's sure he's got to go inside if there's a room. And Chadwick thinks, to hell with this, I'm going for it. Up the inside out of nowhere. Looking to make the move on the inside of Kendall. Hits the curve. Has a little bit of a twitch of oversteer. But Kendall keeps his foot in and keeps the place. That little mistake from Chadwick on the exit of the corner. It was a great move initially, but that little twitch just cost him enough momentum for Kendall to hold on. And it now puts Chadwick back under pressure from both James Dennison and also Will Blackwell Chambers, who's been shuffled to the back of this queue in 8th position, and now trying to pick his way back through. He hasn't got long to go, less than 4 minutes in the first race of the evening here. At the back of the queue, he's got some work to do. Here's the view from Mikey Doble then, with Will Redford looming large in his mirrors, and he's almost latched to the rear bumper. These two were battling for the Esports Series title last season. It all came down to the final race at Laguna Seca. Redford started strong, but it was Mikey Doble who was quicker and better and more consistent in his results throughout the first series that gave him the esports title. And now they push each other down the back straight, back towards the chicane. As Tom Griffiths starts to close in here too, they swing right and then left all over the curbs and back onto that pit straight once again. And Doble here, no stranger to leading races from the front. He's done it in BMW Compact Cup, he's done it in Ginetta GT5s. And of course, we know how quick he's been in the British Touring Car Championship last year, and he's pursuing his prowess once again here on the esports level. Quite a regular iRacer is Mickey Doble, and using all of that to full effect. As that top 8 continues on, little twitch there from John Higgins Jr. back in fourth. He's now once again under threat from Matt Kendall. And Kendall is kind of picking his moments, picking his battles very carefully in this race. He knows that he can go on the attack, but also he's good at defending and keeping drivers at bay, and particularly Will Chadwick, who made that dive up the inside at Redgate a couple of laps ago and initially thought he had it, but the cleaner exit off the corner helped Kendall hold on, and Chadwick's having another look here. He's thinking, right, second time lucky, into McLean's through the right-hander, just takes his racing line, and Kendall doesn't want to give it up. He's still on the outside. Could be pretty close. They are practically touching wing mirrors again, and Kendall will stick to the outside line if he feels he's got enough grip, which I think he does. And round the outside, he will also have the small toe from John Higgins Jr., but he almost tries to get the overlap, but Chadwick gets the move completed. So through McLean's and Coppice, that's Chadwick back to 5th position. Now he's running out of time and laps to get back to the front of the field here. His next target is John Higgins Jr. in 4th place. Let's see if he can pick his way past John Higgins Jr., who was 3rd in last year's eSports Series. Towards Redgate Corner again. Less than 2 minutes on the clock. We're going to get, I think, this and one more lap. Down the hill towards the right hand. I think it's 15 minutes plus 1 lap, I believe. And further back, looking at that scrap that was going on between Ari Barker and Luke Herbert, we're back to the leaders here because it's now all together. It's almost 3 abreast through the crane of curves as Redford goes to the lead. Doble stuck on the inside line, but he will dive back down through the old hairpin. And they still run nose to tail, side by side. They're level on the exit. Here comes Higgins. Look at Griffiths round the outside, trying to make it stick. It's 3 near 4 abreast, and look at Chadwick getting involved as well. It's 3 or 4 abreast, and they tangle. Off the road goes Redford. Off goes Griffiths. Can they keep it off the barriers? Yes, they can. But that's their role in this race done, I'm afraid. Redford once again gets caught up in trouble. No fault of his own, I imagine. Don't want to be calling that as a steward, but Redford is effectively out of contention for victory, and through it all, John Higgins Jr. now leads the way. It's Chadwick in 2nd place. He was 8th at one point. It's 3rd for Doble. Here comes Matt Kendall on the inside. Now they're going to approach the chicane now for what I think possibly is the second to last time. They turn in. Look at them hopping over the curbs with as much gusto as they can. Onto that pit straight, wide for Kendall. He's over the grass on the exit. Actually, white flag goes out, so it will be last time by this time. There's no extra lap on top of it. Down towards Redgate for the final time. If you're going to make a move, it's now or never. Also keep an eye on the 3 cars right at the back of that picture. That's still Bradbury, Jones and Chalmer. They're not too far away, and I did say if these cars start to kick off and fight too much, they will get involved here. They're going to try as hard as they can. They might be just a little bit too far away unless Griffiths and Blackwell Chambers scrap enough to bring Bradbury, Jones and Chalmer into the mix here. The lead then goes to John Higgins Jr. through the old hairpin, through Starkeys and up through Schwantz curve. He's under pressure from Chadwick. If Chadwick still wins this after the slowdown penalty, it'll be an absolute minor miracle. He's looking up the inside for McLean's, and Will Chadwick leads once again on the final lap of the race here at Donington Park. This is only race 1. We've still got 2 more to go after this. But if they're all like this, bring it on. Higgins Jr. back up the inside, tucked underneath the rear bumper of Chadwick, onto the back straight. It's 5 of them now for the podium and for the victory. Who wins it is anyone's guess. Down the back straight towards the Robert chicane for the final time, and they're swarming all over each other. It's still Chadwick from Doble, from Higgins Jr. There goes Doble up the inside. He tags the back of Chadwick. They go all wide. Round goes Doble. They all run wide over the chicane. Chadwick might get a slowdown. They're going to go to the checkered flag. It's side by side, 3-4 abreast. Chadwick squeezes Kendall onto the grass. They're 4 abreast over the line. Who got it at the flag? Matt Kendall gets it on the line by half a tenth, 0.050. 51 thousandths of a second. Chadwick loses out for 2nd place. Dennison was 3rd on the podium. Then John Higgins Jr., who led the race coming into the final lap, is 4th. It's then Griffiths 5th, Blackwell Chambers 6th. And Bradbury, Jones, Charman and Will Redford still gets the top 10. Mikey Doble, meanwhile, did he even finish? He did finish 11th. That was an extraordinary finish to the first race of the evening at Donington Park, and they're still battling and getting involved with each other. That's Richard Frey, the 68 car, and there was 44 involved in that too. Getting a little bit too messy at the end there. Oh, and Richard Jett comes back across the line as well. That's only race 1, but that was practically breathless. But it was 4 abreast over the line. It could have been a slightly tidier last couple of corners, but the result that we got was quite a barnstormer. And we've still got, as I say, 2 more 15-minute races to go here tonight. It could be anyone's guess as to who takes victory, particularly with a performance like that. So the grid's going to be formed by the result of race number 1. So here's the result. Matt Kendall takes it then by 55 1/1000ths of a second from William Chadwick in second place. James Dennison third, John Higgins Jr. fourth, and Tom Griffiths rounds out the top 5. Then Will Blackwell-Chambers, Ted Bradbury, Harvey Jones, Ewan Charman, and Will Redford, after his grassy excursion late on, still picks up a top 10. Mikey Doble 11th as we go on to the run-up for the second race. And again, it's the result of race 1 that gives you race 2. So that top 10 I've just read is the top 10 starting spots: Kendall, Chadwick, Dennison, Higgins, Griffiths, Blackwell-Chambers, Bradbury, Jones, Charman, and Redford. But it's Mikey Doble and Luke Herbert from Steve Roberts and Ari Barker. The 8th row, Chris Etheridge and Andrew Tibbs from Richard Harwood and Keith Dalton. Then the Dobles, Joe and Isaac on the 10th row, with Pete Smith, Will Hopkins, Richard Jepp and Mike Close on row 12. And then we have behind them Tom Selden, Richard Frey, Finley Lyons, Richard Wootton, Lee Britton and Tom Monhemius. That's the 30-car grid. We're getting grid of that once again to do it all over again. Another 15 minutes. Don't get a chance to catch your breath. Here we go once again then. 5 red lights. It's going to be race 1 winner Kendall on pole position here at Donington Park. And round 8 of the eSports series is immediately underway. And once again, it's John Higgins Jr. with an awful start. He wasn't even in gear properly. He was going backwards, literally. A poor start for John Higgins Jr. Thankfully, they all missed him, and it's Linus Sterling towards Redgate Corner for the first time as Kendall heads them out of the first corner and down the hill towards the Crater Curves for the first time. But from the grid, it looks like they're roughly in grid order so far. It's Kendall so far from Chadwick, then it's Dennison. The next group is headed by fourth-place man Will Blackwell-Chambers. I think that's Pete Smith that's gone around in the background, because Dennison has carried on in the top 3. That's Tom Griffiths off the road in the gravel at the old hairpin. So Tom Griffiths, his race has taken an early nosedive. Someone else running wide, careful. 3 abreast as well. That I think was Richard Frey scrapping with it. Looked like possibly one of the Dobles and Richard Jepp, I think. Either way, normal action starts again to race number 2. So into Coppice for the first time on this second start, and it's Kendall who still leads from Chadwick in second place. Dennison's maintained the place well in third. The next group of cars behind them is all over each other. That is Will Redford with a slowdown in the inside by the looks of it. So Will Redford already, his fortune's taking a slight nosedive as well. He's got some work to do now as he tumbles towards the bottom of the top 20. Through the chicane they go for the first time. Line astern, one after the other. Everyone trying to jostle for position and find some space. And Finley Lyons tags the inside of Tom Selden, that was. And round goes Finley. Maximum Motorsport youngster got some more work to do, and there goes Mike Close as well, almost making contact with him too. As he gets going once again, the leaders are back out of Redgate for the second time. A big twitch there from Will Blackwell-Chambers as he loses out to Harvey Jones. And Mikey Doble, after starting in 11th place, up 4 spots already, up to 7th. Let's take a look at where we are in terms of highest rises. The biggest loser out of that was Tom Griffiths. Started 5th, has dropped to 24th position already. Biggest gainer on that opening lap was, not many big gains. The only big gain we had was equally Joe Doble, and Richard Wootton. Richard Wootton and Lee Britton both making up 8 spots. We've got plenty of work to do, picking their way up through the order. Off the road goes Keith Dalton. He's out of it now, so he will be right down towards the tail of the field. He's got to be careful because there are some more cars coming. Careful, Keith. Oh, that could have been a nasty ending if he hadn't held his position carefully enough. Richard Jepp looking up the inside, and he tags the back inside. That was, I think, of Lee Britton. Off the road goes Jepp. It's the first race of 2024, but let's see if we can find a bit more race cars, shall we? The first couple of S's, they go to end lap number 2. Roberts is involved in that as well. Steve Roberts making a strong start. He's into 9th place. Leading trio are already heading down towards Redgate, side by side. And Harvey Jones in 4th place. Little wiggle there as he tried to sort out his steering to try and shake off some of the dust. The inside there was Luke Herbert and Steve Roberts, 2 former races in MX-5 to pick up themselves. Here's the scrap for the lead, 3 of them all together as Chadwick goes to the front. He gets the push from Dennison through the Crater Curves, and Dennison goes to 2nd place. So the race 1 winner down to 3rd place now is Chadwick, who started on pole in race number 1 and got that slowdown penalty and narrowly missed out on the victory by 55 1/1000ths of a second. He's back up to a lead now in race number 2 of the night here at Donington Park. Chadwick, Dennison and Kendall, that's the top 3. Next group headed by Harvey Jones. There's Ted Bradbury and Mike Doble in 6th. Blackpool Chambers 7th. Then we have Ewan Charman, Steve Roberts and Luke Herbert. We're going to scroll through some of the other runners in the field, looking at Pete Smith behind Richard Frey in car 66. Richard Frey, one of the super classic pre-99 Formula Ford racers. Good to see him out on the esports scene in the MX-5. A little further up, there's Tom Selden, car 13 in 15th place. He's chasing after Isaac Doble. Under threat currently behind from Richard Wootton, who is another racer in the MX-5 paddock. There's Dennison's dropping down the order. Dennison's had a massive incident. That's collected, I think, with Ewan Charman by the looks of it. Yeah, the red and white car of Ewan Charman involved in that one. Dennison was tumbling down the timing screen on my screen on the right-hand side. And then I just saw him, camera cut back to him, and he was in the middle of the road. I'm afraid I think Ewan Charman's possibly had to be fast-towed to get him back into contention. He's certainly out of getting a strong result, I'm afraid, already in his early stages. So whilst all that was happening, it's obviously something that's happened with Will Chadwick, I'm suspecting, James Dennison, because now Matt Kendall finds himself back in the lead here in round 8 at Donington Park. And it's also brought into play, not just Chadwick, but it has now brought in Harvey Jones, Ted Bradbury and Mikey Doble. So it's now a leading quintet this fourth lap, laps in the books. It's coming up to 1/3 distance already. There's Ted Bradbury with Mikey Doble behind him. 6th place there for Will Blackpool Chambers. All these cars run a fixed setup, so it's all down to individual talent skill to see who can pedal it the best. They come back down towards the chicane. Still Kendall in control, but see that both Ted Bradbury and Mikey Doble are just trying to find and size up a move on Harvey Jones here for 3rd place. The next group of cars behind Blackpool Chambers is headed by Steve Roberts, and you've got Luke Herbert, Chris Etheridge and Joe Doble. In fact, all 3 of the Dobles are inside the top 12 because Joe is 10th and Isaac is 12th, and they're sandwiching Ari Barker in currently the leading of the 2 Team Northbrook racing cars. Richard Jepp is way down the order. There's Ari Barker in 11th place, trying to close in on the top 10. Further back, there's the recovering Tom Griffiths. He's going around the outside of Richard Wootton through the Craner curves. They run level as they sweep down the hill. With the line and with the position, it's Tom Griffiths up now into what is, currently 15th position, so he holds on to the place. He's got 3 cars dueling in front of him. That's going to be Isaac Doble, the recovering James Dennison, and Tom Selden. It's going to be tasty. Hopefully they can do it cleanly. Oh, I spoke too soon. That was James Dennison into the side of Tom Selden, and they're all together again in towards McLean's. A little bit more spatial awareness, I think 1 or 2 drivers do on this one, but good move at least for Tom Griffiths. He's passed Tom Selden. Now he's got the inside line and the racing line through Coppice to make the move on Dennison. Can he make his way past Isaac Doble in the last couple of corners? He might be a bit too far away here. He's also got to be careful he doesn't get repassed down towards the Robert chicane. Down the back straight, side by side with Selden on the inside. Dennison in the purple car on the outside line. Also recovering, you can see from his slowdown earlier, is Will Redford. He's trying to get involved as well. Be careful, big wiggle. There's more side-to-side contact between Selden and Dennison on the exit. And also watch for both John Higgins Jr. after he's recovering after his slow start. He gets the momentum past Redford. He's going to go past all 3 of them, is he? Up the inside, 3 abreast into Redgate corner. Surely not, John. They make more contact again. They touch all 3 of them off into the gravel. And that's one of those occasions where I'm afraid 3 just doesn't go into 1. All 3 of them wanted exactly the same piece of tarmac, and all 3 of them came off worse as a result. Got some more work to do. They'll have to try and climb back up the order for race 3 and try again. Meanwhile, for the lead, a change on between Kendall and Chadwick. Here we go again. Chadwick's got the move this time by up the inside, holds onto the place, but Kendall, we know, likes to dog it out and hold onto the outside line if he can, because he's that confident he can hold the line and get the momentum off the corner. This time he takes the wider line, but he might open himself up here. He gets the toe from Chadwick down the back straight, but the momentum from Doble carry him past him for 2nd place. They're going to be side by side for 2nd, possibly the lead. Kendall tries to give Chadwick the push. They're going to be all under brakes together. Who's going to be last to try and get up the inside? It will be Doble going to 2nd place, but Chadwick maintains the lead. And now it's 6 of them all together now, with Roberts trying to join in to make it 7 battling for the lead now. Across the line they go. We've just got past half distance, so still about another 7 minutes to go here. Back down towards Redgate. They're all spreading out, all darted to the inside line, and Chadwick now tries to hold on and escape from this absolute melee behind him. We've got Doble holding on to 2nd place. Here comes Bradbury for 3rd, up the inside of Kendall. He'll get the push from Harvey Jones through Hollywood. He hold on through the Craner curves. He's got the momentum when you go around the outside. He's going to try, still side by side, into the old hairpin they go, and Bradbury goes through. And it's also going to open the door once more because the floodgates might open here for a second. Through goes Harvey Jones. It might be a chance for Will Blackwell Chambers to squeeze past 2. If Roberts can get involved here, it'll be just tumbling down the order, tumbling down the top 5 and the top 10. Kendall, as he's lost a bit of momentum. He's down to 5th. Got to try and work hard here not to lose too many more positions, otherwise he will start to fall backwards, potentially into the clutches of this group, which is Joseph Doble, Chris Etheridge, Luke Herbert, and then Ari Barker's not too far away in 11th place to make his way up towards the top 10. 6 minutes left to go, still coming up to the end of the second third of this second race of the evening for the BRSCC Winter Esports Series. James Dennison, after his tangle up at Redgate just a lap ago, he is to recover here. He's got John Higgins Jr. behind him. He's also chasing Richard Frey here. He's kept his nose clean in this second race and managed to rise as high as 15th at this point. It's a good run from Richard Frey. I'm sure he'll be using all the knowledge he gains from here on the MX-5s, at least some of the track knowledge, to help him for the rounds later on this year in the Super Classic Formula 4s. He might have to do a bit more defending in that race if he's in towards the front, because that was James Dennison with a nice clean pass up the inside through Redgate, and the better momentum off the corner will also give an opportunity for John Higgins Jr. here to try and squeeze past. He's got the run through the outside line. Is he going to go for the inside on Dennison? I think he is. He's going for it, and through the Craner curves in towards the old hairpin. Is it 2 for the price of 1? Almost. Higgins stands his ground, as does James Dennison. Frey's going to watch him, maybe make it 3 abreast. It might be wiser, Richard, to sit back and watch this happen, because if he gets involved too much, it might not end well for all 3 of them. Towards McLean's. And again, they love to hold that outside line because they've got the grip and the confidence to do so. The momentum's good for Dennison. He's holding on to the place right now, but the inside track position is going to be for John Higgins Jr. as they come out through Coppice and onto that back straight. Not only has Higgins Jr. squeezed past, but the better run off the corner also gives the line and the place to Richard Fraser. He's made up another place. Battling over 15th place here, and Fraser's looking confident here. He's looking for the inside at the Robert chicane for the position. Can he go up the inside? He was close, but he backed out of it at the last minute. He's forced John Higgins Jr. a little bit offline. This now gives Dennison the chance to come back into view here. As that battle continues, we go back to our leaders here. Now it's a slight change around in the order. So it's Will Chadwick who still leads. Mikey Doble in second place. Third for Bradbury. Fourth for Jones. Fifth for Kendall, who hasn't reclaimed his places after he slipped back a couple of places a couple of laps ago. It's sixth for Blackwell Chambers. And seventh now, who is at the back of that queue, is going to be Steve Roberts. That's a collision at the Redgate. That's between the 3 cars we were watching over 15th place. That's between Higgins Jr., Dennison and Richard Frey. I didn't want that to end in tears, but I'm afraid it has at Redgate Corner. All 3 will get going again, but again, their race is once again compromised after getting a little bit too eager, and I suspect it may well have been another situation of 3 cars trying to go for one piece of tarmac all at the same time and ending badly. Synchronised curb hopping through Robert chicane. Fantastic to watch as they all launched themselves over the first part of Robert chicane, one after the other. Doble now feels as though he doesn't want to wait anymore. He's looking for the outside line here, down towards Redgate. Chadwick gives him the squeeze. He was a bit, possibly a little bit close to the line when it came to trying to defend from Kendall at the end of that race. Let's see how he does this time. He's got Doble to the inside, Bradbury trying to give him the push here, and now the 2 cars that came into the series tonight, first and second in the series, are side by side. It's the defending series champion back into the lead here, and Bradbury goes to second as Chadwick gives him the place. Bradbury up to second place now. Third for Chadwick, but he might try and fight back. He loves the inside line to make a move at McLean's. He's looking outside this time towards the right-hander at the top of the hill. Again, the harder these guys fight each other, the easier it might start to become for Mikey Doble to make a break in these last 2.5 minutes plus change. Coppice, still Bradbury holding on to that place, but Chadwick's got a good run here, and if he can get the toe down the back straight, which he will, it's a great chance here. He could try and sweep around the outside at Robert chicane if he can find enough track position and put himself far enough alongside. He's edging alongside closer and closer, but he backs out at the last minute and actually gives the place straight away to Harvey Jones, who thunders up the inside to get third place. He rumbles all over the curb, and Chadwick tries to get him back on the exit. Down the pit straight they go once again. It's now side by side for third. Chadwick on the outside. Inside in white and pink is Harvey Jones. Again, they almost touch wing mirrors. Down towards Redgate. Jones has got the inside track position, but Chadwick loves going around the outside and holding the place if he can. Jones shows him enough room. That's respectful from Harvey. Again, still side by side, but Chadwick with better momentum, better speed, better pace, and the slightly better line. They're leaning on each other through the second part of the crane occurs, but Jones is still there on the inside line. Jones will not give it up that easy. Back through on the inside of the old hairpin, and back into third place goes Harvey Jones. Chadwick then came into the evening as the points leader in the series, with just 3 ahead of Ted Bradbury. Now, he may well have extended his lead on Bradbury, and that wasn't quite gentlemanly enough from Chadwick. A little bit too late on the brakes, into the back of Harvey Jones, and he gets shuffled back to 7th place. And out of a leading group. He's now in no man's land in 7th place. Some work to do now, and that was Chadwick possibly misjudging his braking point a little bit, but either way, it's the responsibility of the car behind to make sure they don't hit the back of the car in front. And I wonder what the stewards might have to say about that one. I'll leave it to them, because I'm not a steward myself. That's the Robert chicane, onto the pit straight now for the final time, and now it's a battle between Doble and Bradbury for the victory here, unless something kicks off. White flag in the air, one more time around the national circuit at Donington Park. Is there a chance here for Bradbury to try and pick up a victory? He's going for it down the inside line, he looks for it with a huge dive into Redgate corner. Doble gives him the space, he covers off the exit, parks it neatly on the apex. That was a very cheeky but clever move from Ted Bradbury. Smartly covered it off. A little bit of a nudge there from Doble as a response to try and get past, but Ted Bradbury covers it off and he's back into the lead here. We're leading for the first time tonight and looking for a victory here at Donington Park if we can hold on. But here comes Mikey Doble on the outside, exiting the old hairpin under the bridge, and look at Will Chadwick with the run on both of them. Well, this is race 1 at end of race 1 all over again. They're 3 abreast towards McLean's. That might not work, and up the inside goes Chadwick. He's passed both of them. Bradbury tangling with the back of Doble's car. He's out wide. Here goes Blackwell Chambers getting past both of them. 3 abreast towards Coppers. Bradbury puts his car in the middle of the road. Says not on your life to all of you guys. But again, they're fighting so hard. It's giving Will Chadwick the chance to get away here. 3 abreast between for 3rd place now. Kendall now on the recovery run. He's now wheel to wheel with both Doble and Blackwell Chambers. Bradbury goes to the inside line to defend. It's going to be last double 8 breakers again. Chadwick looks like he's on to win this, but who's going to be second backwards? They all go through the chicane. Over the curb goes Doble and Blackwell Chambers over the gravel. Blackwell Chambers is going to hold on. They're still 3 or 4 abreast behind. Chadwick weaves with delight as he wins round 8 of the Winter Esports Series for the BRSCC at Donington Park. And then 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, as quick as you like. Bradbury, Roberts, Kendall, Doble and Jones. Steve Roberts out of all of that got 3rd place on the final couple of corners. Incredible, and he sat back, he kept his powder dry, he waited for it to kick off in the final few corners, and he managed to strike just at the right time. So Steve Roberts gets a podium finish in race number 2 of the night in 3rd place. Kendall 4th, and then it's 5th place for Mikey Doble, 6th for Harvey Jones. Joseph Doble was 7th, 8th was Blackwell Chambers in the end, 9th was Chris Etheridge, 10th was Luke Herbert. The rest of the pack coming streaming across the line. Again, another intense, slightly cleaner finish than race number 1, but still just as intense. A fantastic spectacle, all of them putting involved. Aside from 1 or 2 incidents, there's some cracking racing going on tonight here at Donington Park, and there's still 1 more race left to go. A little bit of a downtime here whilst we sort out the partially reversed top 10 grid. I believe it's the top 10 that gets reversed, and that should mean, that it should give Luke Herbert pole position, I think, because he was 10th. So here's the race 2 results. William Chadwick takes the victory from Ted Bradbury in 2nd place, and Steve Roberts, do all of that out of the last corner, holds on to 3rd, but only just. Kendall 4th, Mikey Doble 5th, and Harvey Jones and Joe Doble in 6th and 7th place, from Will Blackwell Chambers, Chris Etheridge and Luke Herbert rounding out the top 10. Then it's Ari Barker. Will Redford recovered after his early slowdown penalty to get 12th. It's Tom Griffiths, Richard Woodson and Lee Britton in the top 15. Then Richard Harwood, Tom Selden and Keith Dalton complete the top 18 finishes, and the top 10-20 finished by Andrew Tibbs and John Higgins Jr. What could have been for him after he completely duffed the start and then got involved in the incident at Redgate Corner with James Dennison and Richard Frey. Then it's after John Higgins, James Dennison in 21st, ahead of Mike Close, then Pete Smith, Richard Frey, Ewan Charman, Will Hopkins, Isaac Doble. Then we lost earlier in the race, Finley Lyons, Richard Jepp and Tom Monhemius. Glad for the break, because that's been 2 very breathless races at Donington Park, and there's still 1 more left to go with this partially reversed grid. It's the top 10 from race number 2 that get reversed, and that means that Luke Herbert, 3 times MX-5 champion in the real world, racing, is going to start this race from pole position. And usually sometimes the reverse grid races can throw up a little bit of a surprise result, so we'll see how that one plays out. We're in a little bit of an interim 5-minute warm-up session here. whilst we are taking a small break here for a second. So whilst we're just waiting for the warm-up session to finish, we'll quickly just run a couple of things in terms of BRSCC, what's going on. Of course, for those who've been following on all the social channels, will know that registrations for the 2024 BRSCC season are going to be opening on this coming Monday, on the 15th of January. That's for all championships and series. And then race entries will open a week later on the 22nd. So if you're planning to compete in a BRSCC championship or series and you want to get yourself registered, you can do that from this coming Monday. So next Monday on the 15th at 9 AM sharp is when registrations open, and then race entries will open 7 days later at the same time on Monday, the 22nd of January. And of course, for some championships and series, we're expecting bumper grids, lots of exciting racing in store this year. The first round, of course, the first meeting will be on March 16th and 17th at Silverstone on the international circuit. We're going to see plenty of action non-stop all the way. I will remind just quickly myself of what we have on that first event. Will include Mazda MX-5s because they will be out for their first meeting of the year on the same circuit they finished 2023. And so racing there, we will have the Mazda MX-5 Championship, the Mazda MX-5 Clubman Championship, and the Mazda MX-5 Super Cup. We'll also have the opening rounds of the very highly anticipated 2024 BRSCC Fiesta Junior Championship off the back of their record year last year. And they'll start their second year as support to TCI UK, their official junior support championship, with a standalone race on their calendar alongside the regular 7 meetings they will share TCI UK this year. Also, the first rounds of the BRSCC Super Sport Endurance Cup, as well as the BRSCC Club Sport Trophy, and also we'll have the Zio Prototype Series, Modified Ford Series, and the first rounds of another championship that should be one to watch, the Super Classic Pre-99 Formula Ford Championship. If you want information on all the championships and series that race within BRSCC and everything that the BRSCC does, you can head to the website brscc.co.uk. You can also follow along on Facebook, on Twitter, or X, or whatever it's called these days, on LinkedIn as well. We're quite active on LinkedIn, and of course here on YouTube and on Instagram. So follow us along there for as many updates as possible on what's happening throughout 2024. As we just wait for the warm-up session, about a minute or so to go before the warm-up session finishes. And so far it's been quite an intense first couple of races, as we've mentioned. But we will be looking forward to see if there's going to be any more action that we can possibly get. I can see we've got a few people in the YouTube chat watching. I see James Boyle, Rich Reese Tatterson, and the Red Hill Wolf all with their supporters. Good to see we've got a few of you watching here. So good to see we've got plenty of people interested in the esports series, of course. And one thing we should also mention with iRacing is that we ran last year, towards the end of the year, the first ever official BRSCC iRacing Formula FF1600 Festival, which was in conjunction with officially with iRacing and Motorsport UK Esports. That will be happening again. That will be happening towards the beginning of November. So watch out for that, and that will be certainly quite a fun event. It had some great feedback from everyone that was involved in that event. I'm certain that it will be more of the same when we come to November. And as we mentioned, there are plenty of drivers who compete in this series who are regulars within BRSCC championships and series. There are quite a few, as you probably expect, are from the world of the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 paddock, but also there are some races from the likes of the BMW Compact Cup. We've had drivers here from City Car Cup as well, and from the C1 Racing Club. We've had a couple of Fiesta Juniors, both presently and in the past in this series. We've had also cars that have raced in Supersport Endurance, in the Fun Cup Endurance Championship. We've had drivers from the Fiesta ranks as well. And even one of the drivers who possibly could be looking at racing in BRSCC and have associations with BRSCC, whether they are marshals or whether they are one of our photographers or someone who, one of our younger drivers in the grid who are looking to potentially have a race in the championship, racing a BRSCC championship or series in the future. So we'll wait and see if they turn up on the grid anytime soon. So the grid for race number 3 starting to load up. I've got it on my timing screen here. So Luke Herbert then will start on the reverse grid pole position, and he will have Chris Etheridge alongside him. It's a totally reverse top 10, as we mentioned. So it's Blackwood, Chambers and Doble on the second row, Harvey Jones and Mikey Doble on the third row, followed by Matt Kendall and Steve Roberts, Ted Bradbury and William Chadwick rounding out the top 10. And then, of course, we'll scroll through the rest of the grid from 11th downwards with Barker, Redford, Griffiths, Wootton, Britton, Harwood, Selden, Dalton, Tibbett, Tibbs and John Higgins Jr. one to watch from 20th on the grid. Also James Dennison, Mike Close, Pete Smith and Richard Frey back on the 12th row. Then Charman, Hopkins, Isaac Doble, Finley Lyons, and also I'm going to keep an eye on Richard Jett back in 29th. He's got some work to do. One more race tonight then here at Donington Park. Round 9 of the BRSCC Winter Esports Series is underway. A strong start from Herbert from the inside row of the grid, and Richard Jepp already on the grass in the background. Not quite sure what's happening there. He's possibly keeping way out of what could be quite a big melee towards turn one. Hopefully not too much. It's a strong start from Will Blackwell Chambers though. He's up to second place already. So two former MX-5 champions in the real world. Nose to tail for first and second. It's then Chris Etheridge in third. Fourth for Joe Doble. Fifth for Harvey Jones. It's Doble, Kendall, Chadwick, Roberts and Ari Barker rounding out the top 10 already in the first few corners. And there goes Ewan Charman, exit stage right into the gravel. Will they make it through the old hairpin safely? No, there goes Ari Barker on the inside. He's off the road as well. Ooh, careful, this is going to get quite messy again towards Coppice, isn't it? Up through McLean's, in fact. It's Will Blackwell Chambers to the lead. Herbert trying to keep himself in the mix, but also keep his nose clean as much as he can. He's trying to hold position. Off the road in the background's gone John Higgins Jr. He's into the gravel at McLean's. Three car hitting strife already on this opening lap. It's a bit cleaner than some other races you've had. And off the road goes Chris Etheridge. I spoke too soon. That's 4 cars off the road. And at least they're getting it out of their system in the esports series rather than real life. That's even so, this partially reverse top 10 does throw out 1 or 2 surprises, and it does make things quite frenetic, shall we say, as we've already seen. If races 1 and 2 are frenetic, what's this going to be? So Will Blackwell Chambers then, out of all of that, leads at the end of the first lap, and there's more melees going on behind at the final chicane. A couple of cars have gone around. One of the Bromley racing cars was involved in that. I think it was possibly Pete Smith, I think. He's back in 14th place. Redford in the Yang car, and round goes, oh, that's Joe Doble getting off as well. So the car's just not getting heat into the tyres and just probably going for moves that aren't really quite viable. Even so, they are still enjoying themselves out there. And more points. There's Andrew Tibbs getting involved as well. That was getting, I think, sucker punched by possibly Richard Wootton, I think. Yeah, I think everyone's getting a little bit too over-energetic in this third race. I think everybody's just to calm down for a couple of laps, and it'll be back to kind of battling side by side like they should be. And towards McLean's for the second time. Blackwell Chambers is away and gone now by 2.1 seconds out in front. There he is in the from North and Downforce Radio sponsored car. 2022 MX-5 Super Cup Pro Class champion. And quite a regular sim racer in his own right. Here's the onboard from Luke Herbert, keeping well in 4th position. He's now in 5th position, in fact. He's got Chadwick, Jones and Kendall right in front of him as they turn in through. And look at them hopping over the curbs left and right over the Robert chicane. It's a wonderful sight. Do that too much or cut too far over the curb, otherwise you might find yourself with a slowdown penalty, as the likes of Will Chadwick and Will Redford have found so far tonight. We'll see if they can keep it clean for the remainder of the race. All the sea of red brake lights as they stand on the anchors up towards Redgate Corner for the second time. On to lap 3 in this race. Keep tabs on fastest laps, in fact. We should be looking through that. The fastest lap at the end of lap number 2 was actually John Higgins Jr., who is holding station in 20th position, 1:17.836. Everyone else is doing 1:18s and 1:19s, but with some clear air around him. Higgins has managed to pump in a sub-1:18 lap time, which is pretty impressive. He's got some work, a lot of work to do way back in, currently 19th position. The biggest risers, always off the road goes Luke Herbert. There's a bit of a tangle there out towards McLean's, and again another car gets spat out into the McLean's gravel trap. He meanders his way back onto the circuit, but now his race has been compromised a little more, and now he finds himself just in front of one of his drivers in the real world, of course, Tom Selden, who's now on the tail of his team boss, who's starting to recover a bit. Also there is Joe Doble and Pete Smith after they had their early troubles in the opening couple of laps. Now, a bit having to get defensive here is this is Tom Selden going on the attack of his teammate whilst also defending in the background. Somebody else spinning in the background, I think was possibly Mike Close, and he was in the top 20, but he's tumbling down the order. As Herbert just leaps over the first part of the Robert chicane, he now has these 3 cars swarming all over the back of him here as Selden looks to the possibly outside move towards Redgate Corner. They're all battling behind this wall as well. That was Isaac Doble getting to the side of James Dennison. Again, they just calm down. They're all just take a breather here, and they're enjoying themselves racing, but they need to just tone it down a tiny bit to keep themselves on the road. That's going to certainly help them out. And there goes Joe Doble up the inside past Selden. Looks like he's not too bothered about fighting it too much. In fact, he's actually letting Pete Smith get through here by the looks of it. So Smith has also made it through. I think Selden trying to play a slightly longer game here rather than fight it too much. He's realised that if he gets involved in too many battles, it will bring the cars behind into the mix. Might compromise his race at the same time. Here's Isaac Doble. He's got the recovering John Higgins Jr. behind him. He's in 16th position. And they're both chasing on the back of James Dennison, who started quite a bit in the second race for a while, until he had a bit of a rotation. As they come onto the back straight once again, this is where the bulk of the battles are, and this is the bottom of the top 10. Well, Harvey Jones has gone tumbling down the timing screen. He was in about 3rd place, so he's had an issue. He has run wide on the exit of the final chicane, and he's rejoined across the line in 9th place. So he was in a podium place. He's now dropped down. Now that is Luke Herbert, who was leaping around the timing screen for a second there as well. He's now into 10th position. Joe Doble's on the outside line towards Redgate. And here comes Dennison, having up the inside. It's Pete Smith, in fact. Pete Smith in the first of those purple cars. There, also on the tail of him, is Tom Selden. And then the next group is actually that second of the purple Bromley cars, and that is James Dennison himself with John Higgins Jr. on his tail. And well, that was net code or a bit of a touch there, but Luke Herbert very lucky to hold on to that. Fantastic reactions. The car pointing on the straight and narrow midway through the crane of curves, which is somewhere you do not want to have a moment at all, particularly when you get a tap on the tail like that. 3, nearly 4 abreast. Careful, they all somehow get out of that, I think, unscathed, he says with bated breath. 3 abreast to McLean, somehow they'll get out of it in shape. It's 6 of them together towards Coppice. Who's going to be the bravest into this right-hander? It's going to be Doble around the outside. The 2 Bromley cars are getting stuck in here. This is Pete Smith around the outside of Herbert, and then James Dennison on the back of Tom Selden. And now this also brings in here, we've got Richard Jett, Isaac Doble, and Richard Harwood in here as well. Now all over each other. This is like a 7 or 8 car training, 9 cars involved in fact, into the Robert chicane. Do they all come out in one piece? The answer is yes, he says with some surprise. I was expecting a bit of a tangle, but they are starting to calm down a tiny bit. He says that for the time being, but now we've got John Higgins Jr. side by side with Pete Smith. Meanwhile, there's been a change from the lead because Will Chadwick has got past Will Blackwell Chambers. So after breaking away from that route for second place backwards, he's now got through and passed Will Blackwell Chambers. It's one of Will's better evenings in terms of results. He certainly would have enjoyed leading for a little while. Now William Chadwick is back on the pace here. He's back to the lead, and Will Blackwell Chambers will try and go with him as much as he can, but he knows that if he can try and tail with him, the both of them can start to pull away. As Matt Kendall heads that quintet of cars not too far behind in 3rd place backwards. Kendall, Redford, Griffiths, Doble and Roberts. In terms of lap time, let's have a quick look. Fastest lap of the race has currently gone to Mikey Doble, currently in 6th position, 1 minute 16.463. The fastest cars are into the 116s now, in fact, all the low to mid 117s. Last lap, in fact, for Chadwick was nearly a second faster than Will Blackwell Chambers. It was a 16.6. They were both personal bests for Chadwick and Blackwell Chambers, but Chadwick was just that bit faster to hold on to the place. Blackwell Chambers does set a new personal best on that lap. He's also been caught by Kendall. You can see here, that's Luke Herbert launching over the first part of the Robert chicane. This absolute melee here going on between these cars, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them together, and also recovering appears to be in the background. That looks like Ewan Charman by the looks of it. Yes, so in fact Ewan Charman's there. In fact, it's a couple of the cars ahead. That's Richard Harwood, I think. Yeah, Harwood's in 17th place in the kind of kamikaze-looking Rising Sun in a white machine. Here is Richard Jett battling with Harry Barker battling with Ewan Charman. I can stop muddling my words. Mikey Doble, the inside at McLean's, past Tom Griffiths, and that's Tom down to 6th position. Doble up into a top 5 spot. And intriguingly, Chadwick has not only broken away from Blackwell Chambers, but Will has now also fallen backwards into the clutches of that leading group of cars, headed by Matt Kendall. So he might now lose himself another couple of places if he's not too careful. 6 minutes to go. Going on to the start of lap 8. 7 laps will be completed in the books here as they all again thunder over those curves, left and then right over the Robert chicane, nose to tail, one after the other. And as Chadwick escapes to a 2-second lead up the road. It's now for second place, currently Blackwell Chambers, but Kendall's thinking about it, having a look up the inside, not just thinking about it, he's going for it. Into Redgate and up into second place goes the BMW Compact Cup man. Past the former MX-5 Super Cup Pro Class champion. Also in there too is going to be Will Redford here, of course a Civic Cup race winner in the real world, alongside the former BMW Compact Cup champion and BTCC star Mikey Doble. Up the inside he goes into 4th position. That's another place gain for Doble, but runs wide on the exit, puts 2 wheels onto the grass and over the curb. And now as they go through Starkeys and Schwantz, Redford's got the overlap. There's a look. The inside line for the right-hander at the top of the hill, and without fighting it too hard, Doble lets him through and gives Will Redford the place. Redford then into 4th place now and trying to pick himself up a podium. He's not too far away from that. He's still got 3rd of the race to go. He is in contention here. Griffiths 6th, Roberts 7th. These top 7 altogether. Well, it's Chadwick the leader, and then the next 6 battling over 2nd place. This is the still recovering John Higgins Jr. inside the top 10 now. He's looking for 9th place on the outside of Joseph Doble, but Joe now has the inside for the Robert chicane. Also getting the push now is James Dennison, giving the push to John Higgins Jr. And this might also help Dennison if he can start to squeeze through too, which he doesn't. It does help John Higgins Jr. complete the move, and up into 9th place he goes. So from what was, where was he towards the back of the grid? He was back in 20th place. He's up to 11th. The biggest riser through the field is Richard Jett, up 17 places from what was 29th into 12th. So not too far away from the top 10, but a good run for Richard Jett, keeping his nose out of trouble. He got off a little bit at the start of the race to keep it out of the way of what could have happened on the first lap. He's done that, kept it clean, and is now not too far from making that top 10 if he can get a little bit closer. Meanwhile, this is the scrap for the lead going on. Chadwick now up the road by nearly 2.5 seconds. You can see at the bottom of the shot as he goes through Coppice. And we ride on board with Steve Roberts, former Formula Ford racer, former MX-5 Super Cup racer, also racing Ginettas, more recently been a race winner in the Porsche Sprint Challenge GB and a Porsche Cayman. Very experienced racer is Steve, very quick racer is Steve, and also proving his prominence in the sim racing world, again in a Mazda MX-5. So he certainly loves his all drive machines, using all his expertise in the real world to try and keep with these leaders in the sim world. Down the pit straight, coming up towards 3 minutes to go. This is now 9 laps completed, towards double figures, and with the momentum on everyone, looks like it's Tom Griffiths looking down the outside. Everyone's trying to get the apex and the racing line through Redgate Corner, and round the outside of Doble and Redford, whoa, and Griffiths, and possibly Blackwell Chambers. He's going to go Tom Griffiths here on the outside line. There's a wiggle there from Blackwell Chambers. I think the 2 cars touched ever so slightly on the apex. Now as they come down through the old hairpin, Redford stands his ground, Doble back up the inside of Griffiths and holds on to the place. They're literally bumper to bumper out of the old hairpin and under the bridge through Starkeys. Here comes Steve Roberts now with an option to get himself into the top 5. How much would he like to do that? It won't happen like that for Will Redford though, in exactly the same place he was off a couple of races ago in race number 1. Skips over the grass. Don't know if he'll get a slowdown penalty for that, as he didn't gain any advantage. In fact, he lost position, so I think hopefully the iRacing system will forgive him for that one. He's down to 7th place. Meanwhile, this battle's still going on for 9th place between Higgins, Joe Doble and James Dennison. It's still John Higgins Jr. who holds on to that place. Doble around the outside. Dennison leans on him through the first part in that early apex of Coppice as it opens out onto the Starkey straight. And now it's Doble's turn to give John Higgins Jr. the push to try and hold on and get the toe down towards the Roberts chicane here. And again, round the outside goes Doble. Dennison let him have that rather than getting too entangled into that mess. Too far away. Going to keep an eye on what's happening with Richard Jett, who's into 12th place. Now, this is still going on for 4th position. Top 3 are trying to break away here. Well, it's first and second have broken away. First 3 are broken away, in fact. It's Chadwick, Kendall and Blackwell Chambers. This is for 4th place downwards, though. And it's Griffiths, Doble, Roberts and Redford all together, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th. Will Redford in the bright blue car with the Nyancat graphic on the side. Yes, that is Nyancat on the side for Will Redford. Certainly trying to bring him some kind of luck, and he's being it clean so far through McLean. He's got a good run on Roberts here, possibly make a move up towards Coppice or even the final chicane. Roberts laying down the law here, no pun intended, given that his car is essentially a Mazda MX-5 Global Cup police car. Back straight they go, and one more time around this time for the Esports Series runners, as Will Chadwick will lead them towards the timing line for the penultimate time to take the white flag. And I think there was a bit of a nut tap in the tail there from Will Redford, because Steve Roberts went sailing over the grass and just holds back to let Redford through, possibly to try and avoid any feeling of getting a slowdown penalty or an advantage. As for Will Chadwick, he, of course, has taken one victory tonight. He just missed out on the race 1 win from this man, Matt Kendall. 55 1,000ths of a second between the two of them. A slightly calmer last race of the night, but of course there's still that scrap for 4th going on. They've stretched out a little bit between each other, and now they're starting to just they're starting to bed into this race now. We're on to the last lap now anyway. It hasn't been as frenetic or much of a fracas as it has been in the end of the first two races, when it was really wheel to wheel and three wide and everyone going for the same piece of tarmac. It's been a little calmer in the second half of the race. One or two moments, just a bit more spread out once the cars have picked their way through the reverse grid top 10. At the back, this is still over 9th and 10th position. Joe Doble on the tail of James Dennison. And John Higgins Jr. has dropped back to 20 seconds. We didn't catch what happened to him, but John Higgins Jr. down the order in 22nd position, which is a shame, as they head on towards the Starkey Straight for the final time to continue their battle. Will Chadwick continues his fine form in the BRSCC Winter Esports Series. He wins round number 9 of the series at Donington Park. Second win of the evening. 2 win in the second place. That will do nicely for Will to try and hold on to his championship lead. Then it's Matt Kendall in second place, and Will Blackwell Chambers ends an interesting night for him towards the front of the field. He picks up a podium as a result. It's 4 for Tom Griffiths, then Mikey Doble, Will Redford, Steve Roberts and Harvey Jones. Up to the checkered flag come Dennison and Doble, and Dennison just holds on for a top 10, as does Joe Doble. And an impressive driver, Richard Jett, though, 18 places made up from 29th on the grid, basically the back of the grid, to 11th place, just outside the top 10. That's one of the drives of the night. Well done to Richard for a strong performance. Still fighting on the run towards the final chicane, including Luke Herbert. This is with Will Hopkins, and I think that's Richard. That's Keith Dalton, I think, one of the two. Sprint towards the line, and who's going to get what position across the line? John Higgins Jr. salvages a 20th position. He holds on nonetheless, and as they all do the typical thing in sim racing, which is once the race is finished, all of them crash in the first corner, which is what they typically tend to do. It is end of racing for this evening. That was quite entertaining. A good way to kick off 2024 in terms of BRSCC racing, particularly for the third evening of the Winter Esports Series. We'll drag some of the drivers and some of our winners into the interview room very shortly, but here's the results from race number 3. Will Chadwick takes the victory for Matt Kendall in second place, and Will Blackwell Chambers rounds off the podium in third. Fourth place for Tom Griffiths, 5th for Mikey Doble, 6th for Will Redford, then Steve Roberts rounds out that top 7 group. The next set of cars was Harvey Jones, who was all on his own in 8th position, then James Dennison and Joe Doble round out the top 10. Then Richard Jett from 29th on the grid to 11th, one of the drives of the night. Good job from him to get up there just outside the top 10. Then Richard Harwood, Isaac Doble, Ari Barker and Pete Smith in the top 15, followed by Ewan Charman, Mike Close and Richard Frey in 18th position. Then 19th for Keith Dalton. John Higgins Jr., after whatever happened to him in the last couple of laps, sees him drop back down and recover to 20th. Then Luke Herbert, the reverse grid pole man, goes back to 21st. Will Hopkins, Chris Etheridge, Tom Selden, Andrew Tibbs, Lee Britton, Andy Lyons, Richard Wootton, Ted Bradbury, who had quite an enormous race in race number 3, retired quite early on, sadly, and Tom Monhemius, rounding out the 30 runners that we had this evening. So, that was action-packed to no end. We've got a couple of drivers that we can at least have a chat to. I'm going to bring in the man who actually won race number 1, but only by 55 one-thousandths of a second. Had a very strong evening all the same, which is the man who won race number 1 and picked up a couple of podiums as a result of that. Let's see if we can bring in Matt Kendall to have a chat with him and see how he found that. Matt, excellent racing for you. I think the first thing we have to talk about is that race 1 finish, 55 one-thousandths of a second. I think Will obviously wanted that win more than you did, the way he was trying to defend that on the line. But just talk us through how that was, because that was quite a breathless finish to race number 1.
Well, going into the last chicane, I could see that some people were very excited about the finish, and I thought I'm just going to sort of bleed off the throttle a bit. And as Murray Walker said, it's happened immediately. And I went, yeah, that's still mine. That's still technically the track. That's still technically the track. Oh, I've won. So,
yeah, okay. Kudos for keeping your foot in, because some people, if you get on the grass, you think not quite sure, but when the incentive is there to try and go for the checkered flag and the win, and the line is right in front of you, you've got no other choice but to keep your foot in and just try and send it, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, you're just fixated on that line as soon as you see the gap. Just weld it to the floor.
Definitely. Well, it's a well-deserved win. Fantastic after all that happened in that first one. The other 2 races, in around sort of the leading part and sort of in the mix as well. Race 2 had a bit of a tight finish as well on the last lap also. Just for those races 2 and 3, how do you sum those up in terms of performance?
It was basically just trying to limit how much I dropped to the guys that I miraculously beat in race 1. Will Chadwick's obviously mental. So it's just getting those guys through while losing the minimum amount of time, and it all worked out pretty well in the end.
Did work out well in the end, and of course we had quite a fantastic leading group of cars, a couple of drivers who are starting to find their form. It's kind of like what we had last time, or in some other championships in the real world, particularly I suppose in Compact Cup as well, where starts the season, some drivers trying to find their feet, suss out the competition, who are the front runners, but even over the winter I suspect some drivers have been doing a little bit of sneaky testing and some practice to get themselves a bit quicker, and this leading group of cars, particularly in all three races, we had almost different drivers going for the lead and for podium places at some point. It's starting to become that point now where after the first couple of races, everyone's settled in now. That lead pack is getting bigger and bigger, and it's getting closer and closer, particularly with how close it was in qualifying. You find that it's now becoming, compared to the first couple of races, this was an even more competitive night than it was at Silverstone or Brands Hatch.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, the level we've got this season is pretty mental. The esports guys coming in, just blowing us out of the water. Yeah, it's pretty mental, really, and it's not just them either. It's as you say, it's others who've, we've been noticing their I rating increasing as they've been practicing more and more for these, and it's really nice to see how competitive it's getting.
Yeah, absolutely, and the more competition is only a good thing, of course, particularly if you guys want to use that for good practice for any real world plans. Next out in a couple of weeks' time, the shortest and smallest circuit that we go to in the esports series calendar, that's Knock Hill. Obviously, you've raced there a couple of times, I think if I remember correctly, in BMW Compact Cup. Any feelings on how that's going to go? Is that a circuit that you're going to look forward to, or are you kind of dreading that a little bit because it is so light and short, and it's going to have 30 of old MX-5s going to jostle for the same bit of track at the first corner?
I mean, I love Knock Hill, so no matter how hectic it gets, I'm going to be driving with a grin on my face for that.
So essentially, bring it on, basically.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff. Well, listen, great to have you on the grid again after the winter period. Congratulations on the race one win and for performing so well tonight. Go get some practice in, and we'll see you for Knock Hill in a couple of weeks' time. Well done.
Cheers.
Great stuff. Let's bring in the man who won the other two races and certainly has kept himself planted firmly at the top of the table, I'm certain, and that is double race winner from tonight, and I believe still points leader after tonight, Will Chadwick. Just going to go back to, first of all, Will, congratulations on the 2 wins, but I'm going to go back to race number 1. You didn't want to give it up too easy to Matt, did you? He kept his foot in, but you pushed him all the way, quite literally, to the edge of the road towards the checkered flag. That was quite an intense finish.
I thought I could force him to bump me to the line, but he thought better of it, which is smart from him, to be fair. It's all really close racing in these types of cars. So yeah, it was a good race with Matt. Congratulations for him for getting that first win of the evening. And yeah, I think he's probably won the Hydro Race bottle from this round, I think.
I tell you what, nothing seemed to kill you off in many cases. You had that slowdown penalty early on in race number 1, and you still came back from that. You then had the option to pull away a little bit in race number 2, and then it extended a bit in race number 3. But you had points when you were sort of in the mix, and then you had to really kind of scrap your way through the leading group to kind of get yourself back to that front part. And then even times when you thought you got away, and then they came back at you, and then it all became another melee towards the last couple of laps. So particularly races 1 and 2 towards the end were quite frenetic. Just how was it from the driver's seat from your point of view?
It's always going to be like this. I kind of accepted going into this round that it was going to be hectic up at the front. There's not loads of time where if people have got the toe, they're going to be fast. I think we see that from who was getting fastest laps and kind of where it was about. If you've got toe, you can be going nearly a second a lap faster, depending on what time of the race. Than someone without it, even on their best pace. So I was always accepting that it was going to be a hard, tough race, but it's a lot of fun. I think you've just got to keep your wits about you, just keep trying to not end up in any silly incidents, and just keep trying the best and be decisive when you can. I think the race winning move on the last lap in race 2 was one of my best moves in the last year, so I was really happy with that. And the race 3 just went my way. I just got lucky. Will got a slowdown, and he had to drop back from that point. And when I had that little bit of a buffer, considering my qualifying pace, I was just able to keep the gap to Matt. And yeah, that's the only reason that race ended up being simple.
Simple or complicated, you still managed to get the job done. And as I said to Matt as well, we're starting to get that point already in this season now where the first couple of races have happened, people start to feel each other out a little bit, get used to the cars, used to the setup. tonight compared to Brands Hatch and Silverstone, I and Matt shared the same opinion. It's now getting to that point already in the season where people are starting to figure it out now. They're starting to find how quick they can go with these cars. The top 20 was covered by less than a second in qualifying, so that's just proving now, at this point, already only 3 rounds in, and even after the Christmas break, people have done their work. They've done their homework with these cars on the fixed setup, and they're getting quicker and quicker. And that league group in particular, I'm sure you'll agree, was incredibly competitive. Probably the most competitive league group we've had since the start of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's really fast and able to put in good lap times. Like you say, there was it was very not a lot of separation between the front few drivers in qualifying. I think you look to somewhere like P15 in qualifying, and it was quite a bit closer than that. It was like 6/10, I believe. So yeah, it's really close. It always will be, and it's always going to be a case of sometimes you are going to be in a race and you can't win every race. And I think with the way the points format goes, despite the 3 drop rounds, consistency and finishing inside that top 5 every race is super important. And if I drop the ball one week or something happens to me, I get an incident in race 1 or something like this, those 3 drop rounds can be gone very, very quickly. So you've got to be on your toes and be ready to face what comes at you.
Yeah, you're not wrong, particularly when it's so close as it is. And of course, the competition is wrapping up. So you're absolutely right. And we saw it even last year, of course, with the battles between Will Redford and Mikey Doble and co. One small slip with the consistency. You can be the fastest guy out there. If you can't rack up the points consistently, then the results won't come. Just finally, of course, next round coming up is Knock Hill. Of course, tight, twisty, some 25 to 30 odd MX-5s altogether fighting for that first corner. Obviously, you want to be towards the front of that, but give us your thoughts on what you're expecting and if you're looking forward to or dreading heading across the virtual border into Scotland and giving Knock Hill a try.
Knock Hill's a very technical circuit, and it has a very tricky chicane in the way that you have to take it to be fast in the simulator. I'm sure you can see in the last chicane, although the curbs have changed in real life these days, in the final chicane, in the sim, because you're not worried about budgets or blowing up a shock absorber, for example, you can be a lot more aggressive on the curbs, and that will certainly come into play at Knock Hill. But I think from my perspective, I can only look on it fondly, because I'd say that that's the one track in the season where the toe effect will be the smallest. So it should suit having a pace advantage if I'm able to produce that this coming week, whenever that is. I think it's on the 25th actually. But whenever that comes about, just keep my head down, try to do my best, and keep pushing.
Sure, you'll be racking up the practice laps between now and the 25th, but even so, great races like once again, second place and 2 wins. I believe that should, as I can tell anyway, you're ahead of Ted Bradbury in all 3 races anyway, so that should keep you on top of the series standings. So we'll see how you get on, we'll see how the calculations fall out afterwards. But apart from that, excellent driving again once again all round with 2 wins in the second, and all being well, we'll see you in a couple of weeks in Knock Hill. But congratulations, and we'll see how you go in Scotland.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And just a quick thank you to you guys for broadcasting, for Will and all the team for putting on this league every week, and to my sponsors for this series, but also in real life, Green Genie Rebuilds, Frentech Braking, RC Sim Photography, and PDM Media. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you for taking part as well, and we shall see you in Knock Hill in a couple of weeks' time.
See ya.
Great stuff. I think one more driver to have a chat to, and that's the man who makes everything tick in terms of the background admin stuff, and of course races in it himself, of course, and that is Will Blackwell Chambers. So we'll bring in the man himself to have a chat about his evening. Mr. Blackwell Chambers, once again we'll have a chat with you. Again, a bit of a banana evening for you, and you was looking good for race number 3 until I didn't see you had a slow down, but even so, from the time that you had out in front, looked like the pace was looking pretty good.
Yeah, pace was good. I think when I get near the front group, I must admit I do struggle. It was quite funny when you're looking in front of me. You're like, oh, so there's pro esports drivers, touring car drivers, people at uni, and then there's me. And I don't play this game very much, so it's all right. I was quite happy with this evening. But yeah, no, race 3 was entirely my fault. Will chased me down doing a brilliant drive, and then I was like, okay, right, let's just stick with him and track limit, slow down and pick that up. And then Matt was fairly quick, and I didn't particularly want to fight him because I could see there was a very potent pack behind him, so I thought, you know what, let's tuck in. We play quite a bit of iRacing together, so I know how quick he is, so it was kind of tuck in, chill out, get through to the end without getting any more slowdowns. But no, really happy with this evening.
Yeah, I'm talking to the other two guys as well on top of that, and I'll talk about the same thing with you as well. Even though it's only the third event, and maybe been quicker than last year's contest, it does feel like that competition has, some of them have been using the winter break between Brands Hatch and Donington Park to really work on the pace and really work on how to get the knack of this car, because you saw the top 20 covered by a second in qualifying. Lead group of 8-9 cars for the most part that were in the mix, evenly matched, lots of position swapping, sometimes a little bit too energetic at times, as we tend to get sometimes in this series, but even so, when they were at it and going cleanly and battling amongst each other, I think that's probably the most competitive that I've seen the front-running group in the esports series since we began it all the way back in at the end of 2022. And I think that really shows that all drivers have been putting in a lot of the work to understand the setup of the car, to get quicker, and it's that natural improvement from drivers across the board that's making them closer and closer and bringing this league group together and making it even more competitive than when we started.
Yeah, I think the series is really going from strength to strength. It's quite fun. When we originally set this up, it was kind of, keep people entertained during the winter. And it seems to have progressed to a lot more of that. It's getting quite serious. You've got some very, very big names coming in. And the racing is, on the whole, especially up the front, fairly clean. The last couple of laps get a bit frantic, but that's MX-5 racing. But on the whole, it's clean, it's fair, and there's a lot of respect between the drivers. It's quite fun. We're all generally all in the Discord having a chat, so it's proving really good. I think a lot of people are enjoying it. You get a lot of positive feedback, and I think it puts iRacing in a really good light. MX-5's in a great light, and obviously it's great that the BRSCC is sort of one of the first UK clubs to really start pushing a series like this and getting it off the ground, and also opening up this year to people beyond just real life racers, and giving an opportunity for anybody out there to jump in against, well, as I said, touring car drivers, top MX-5 drivers, top of multiple of the BRSCC series, and show what they can do.
Yeah, likewise, and that's yourself included doing that, and of course for all your work and for Matt and everyone else involved in that side of things, doing a fantastic job as always. And I even will, Chadwick mentioned there, just to give thanks to you guys and to get and to BRSCC and everyone involved for putting it on. It seems that it's inspiring quite a few people, with still having 30 cars on the grid for the majority of the drivers that signed up that are still competing, which is really positive to see. Final point, as I mentioned to the other two as well. Next up, we've got Knock Hill, across the border into Scotland now on the shortest circuit, feels like the smallest circuit that we go to. That's going to be intriguing. It's a little mini roller coaster as Knock Hill, plenty of dips and sweeps, and MX-5 trying to go for the spot. It's going to be very interesting to see how that's going to happen. But any thoughts for you guys going forward?
Knock Hill will be busy. I'm afraid I can't make it. I'm actually out of the country, but I'm leaving it in the capable hands of Matt, who's going to be running it for me. But no, it's going to be some very close racing. It's quite a short track, which means you may end up with a little bit of a lap traffic issue. But last year it was action-packed and everyone loved it due to the undulating nature of the circuit. So I'm expecting the same kind of level of racing this year.
Good stuff. Well, slept with not being able to sadly we won't be able to see you there, of course, as you mentioned, but fingers crossed the racing is just as good as it has been so far tonight, and all being well, we'll see you at the penultimate round in a couple of weeks after that. But excellent job once again tonight, a good result, at least in the final race, to give you a good result, and we'll see you next time whenever you're back out.
Yeah, for sure. Cheers.
Good man. So I think that wraps up our interviews for round 7, 8 and 9 of the BRSCC Winter Esports Series for the 2023-24 season. It's been another action-packed evening of esports racing from start to finish. And once again, victories for Matt Kendall only just in the first race, and races 2 and 3 for Will Chadwick. And that should keep him once again atop of the esports standings in the mix as well. If you want information on all the championships and series that run with BRSCC, you can head to the website brscc.co.uk. Give us a subscribe on the YouTube channel. Do the same also to Apex Racing TV if you are watching as well. Thanks to them, to Lee Thompson on production, all the guys at Apex Racing TV for allowing us to broadcast these winter esports races. On top of that, thanks to All Blackwell Chambers Racing, also to Hydro Race, to iRacing, of course, on top of that, and to all the other BRSCC club sponsors and partners. And thanks to you for watching, of course, as well. On that, you can follow BRSCC on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, of course, and on LinkedIn, to keep an eye on all that. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time for our fourth meeting, our second one of 2024. As we mentioned, we're heading across the border into Scotland and to Knock Hill, and all these MX-5 heading down towards Duffus Dip for the first time. That's going to be quite entertaining. But from all of us here, from myself, Scott Woodward, and Lee Thompson, and all of us at BRSCC, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time for meeting 4 of the season from Knock Hill. But until then, bye for now.